left. And that is for your benefit if you'd like to go back and listen to this again, or if you have any team members that you think would find value in this recording, please go ahead and share this with them. As Jennifer and I were preparing for this, this is a wide range audience that this topic will be very, very valuable for. So we definitely encourage you to share the recording and the information with those on your team that are unable to attend live today. So welcome everybody to our EGP Leaders Series. As many of you know, I see some very familiar faces. Sarah and I host this the third Thursday of every month, completely free of charge at the same time. And the topics are very geared towards those in the internship, impacting intern recruiting, productivity, conversion, leadership development. So we're very excited to have you all here today. And we're very, very excited to have Jennifer Hensley, our guest speaker for this month, to talk to you guys today. So I am going to go ahead and introduce Jennifer, and then she is going to jump into her topic for you today. So owner of Playmaker Coaching and Consulting, Jennifer Hensley created a winning system that has been proven to achieve top-tier results. With over 2 decades of marketing and sales experience, both in the field and at the home office, Jennifer is a playmaker for your business. She has helped over 1,500 advisors and 80 offices achieve compound growth using her Playmaker winning system. Jennifer is on a mission to change the game for financial advisors to scale sustainably without the hassle or the hustle. Jennifer's best teammates are her husband, Keith, and daughter, Samantha, who always push her to play her own game and stay on offense. She believes it's important to live with intention. This year, her word for the year is champion. How can she be a champion for you? So I am going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's so great to be with you this afternoon. And don't you just love these webinars that Charity and Sarah put on every month? I think they're just fantastic and so impactful. So give them some love in the chat, kudos to them. And let's not forget about you. In a year, more than a year now, when many others have scaled back or just maintained, you've stayed in it and focused on growth, even setting many records. In down times, we know that the most successful companies that stay in it are proven to come out 256% better than those that don't. Those that stay in it always come out ahead. So there I was sitting at my desk, staring at my computer and looking at the number of participants in my Zoom call, hoping to hear that chime of a new attendee. I had spent weeks preparing to make sure I felt ready and could deliver value to my audience. I was hosting a free webinar as a follow-up for a conference I sponsored. Surely, I thought I'd have a dozen or so attendees. When what happened? One person showed up. I was so frustrated. I thought to myself, why did I waste all this time and energy? And I almost wish that no one had shown up, so at least I could have had that hour back in my calendar. Instead, I had to go on and modify my interactive presentation to make it work for one person so that it could still provide value to them. As an introvert, my journey with speaking has never been easy, but to get the opportunity and then only have one person in the audience stung. Even worse, at the end, I had to try to sell a program that both the participant and myself didn't really want to hear the dreaded sales pitch. Talk about embarrassment and frustration. I took speech classes, I delivered webinars, I even spoke at annual meeting, always with great feedback. But here I was thinking, what am I doing wrong? I remember thinking there had to be a better way to speak more powerfully and maximize the impact that I could have. So after that experience, I felt so badly. I thought, what do I have to do to make sure I never have to do that again? I never want to spend hours preparing for something that doesn't hit the mark. I never want to feel salesy. My story is not unique. Many people struggle with how to speak more powerfully and to make a greater impact. So say yes in the chat if you can relate. I believe that just like there is an art and science to client building, there's an art and science to speaking powerfully. That's when I get started researching. And now after spending thousands of dollars, I finally got it. Now, instead of speaking to the wrong audience, I now have a process and system to make sure I'm intentional with who I speak to. Instead of speaking just to educate, I'm speaking to connect first. Instead of just delivering a presentation that people like, they drive people to take action and move forward. In the past 20 years, I've helped dozens of leaders just like you get better results. And so in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to speak powerfully to maximize your impact. This is the one area that I find field leadership is particularly interested in. We're all speaking every day, and our ability to share our message in a powerful way that impacts and converts is essential. Since most presentations are virtual now, finding ways to deliver your message effectively to maximize that impact is more important than ever. This is the part of the system that Charity asked me to talk about that she knew would have the most value to you today, to help you walk away with strategies you can use, whether you're talking to one person or a group of 500, whether you're in person or it's virtual, whether you're the host or you're the guest speaker. This applies to you whether you're a professional speaker, been on stage at annual, or you don't even consider yourself a speaker at all, but you want to grow your firm and you want to impact more lives. So in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through these 3 areas. Share my screen here. Bear with me. Okay, setup, success, messaging, and delivery. So as we talk through each section, I always like to preface it as, if what you're doing today is working, why change? But if not, consider these strategies. And I'm guessing since you're here today, you think there might be some better ways than what you're doing today. And in fact, for many of you that completed the pre-work ahead of time, you said on a scale of 1 to 10, you felt like you were a 5 in this area. But in terms of importance, you said it was at least an 8 for you to get better in this space. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is setup success. So in the next 10 minutes, we're going to identify some opportunities you can implement immediately and some ninja tips, as I like to call them, that may take a lifetime to master. Let's get started. Let me give you a couple of thought joggers. So get out a piece of paper or feel free to answer these questions in the chat if you're comfortable with that. So let me stop sharing my screen for just a moment. I'm going to switch over here. Okay, so the first thing I want you to think about is why is speaking important to you? And bear with my handwriting. I'm a lefty and my handwriting is not pretty. But why is speaking important to you? So think about that, reflect on that question. Okay. Next up, why is it important to your office? And one more, why is it important, most importantly, to your audience? Oh, and I love it. We see that this is the way I can share my value with others. Fantastic. And I know for some of you that thought about some of these questions ahead of time in the pre-work, you said to be able to create change in your organization, to have a huge part of the impact that you want to have, to learn skills to be more confident, to implement 2 to 3 new ideas that you could use when you're interviewing. Fantastic. We're going to address all those areas today and give you some great tools that you can implement right away. Share my screen again here. Okay. So the reason we're going to talk about setup success today is because you will never get an audience to trust you and want to work with you if you haven't set up that success ahead of time. And in a space when there's lots of options available to consumers, there's so many resources out there. Those that teach are always seen as more credible. So let's take a look at why it's important financially. You were each asked to complete this as part of your pre-work, as well as you have a handout available in the resources for today's conversation, this worksheet that is available. I'll try to make that so you guys can see it, but it's in your box. You'll have that available to you. And you know the value of a dial. You know the value of a fact finder. What's the value of your speaking opportunities? So what we asked you to do is think about how many stages or how many speaking opportunities do you have each year? Most of you said it ranged anywhere from maybe 2 to 10. How many people are in the audience? Now this varied a lot in the responses. Some people said maybe it's as low on average of 5. Others said it's up to 100. So you may be talking to some larger groups, some smaller. Think about just kind of what your average number is. What is the percentage of names that you collected? By this, we mean, what are those percentage of the people in the audience that you are able to follow up on? You have their contact information so you can continue that dialogue to the next step. What is the percent that converted? That's the percentage that actually took action, whatever that next step is that you're encouraging them to do, that one next thing that you want them to do, what percentage actually move forward? And then what's your average product? Or in this case, it might be what's the value of an intern or a value of a recruit? Now, I know your interns are worth even 3 times more as a regular full-time candidate. But if you don't know what this value is, that might be something you want to have a conversation with your leadership team around of how valuable is each intern or recruit into our office. If you're an advisor, you probably certainly know your average case size that you could use to fill out this formula. And then what's great is then you can really start to see how if you play with the numbers, just like everything else we do, you can see the difference that it makes. So if you know 30 names typically get you 1 intern recruit, you can start to see how many speaking engagements will get you that 1 recruit and what the value of that recruit is as well. So if you've gone through this in the pre-work or you're going through this right now, love to hear what you see as your annual speaking value. Drop that in the chat. Tell us what it is for you. And then what we're going to see is that as you can evaluate this equation, just even small changes in any part of the equation can make a really significant difference for you. But which part do you feel like you have the greatest opportunity to improve? So Charity's going to launch a poll for us, and we want to know, where do you feel like you have the greatest opportunity? Is it to get more speaking engagements, larger audience, getting more contact information, or to convert more to the next step? And as you're thinking about this poll question, let me give you a couple benchmarks that might be helpful to you. In terms of what percentage of your audience should you be getting contact information for? Good would be 80% or better. So if you're less than 50%, definitely got some opportunity there. And in terms of those that take the next step, this varies quite a bit, but 5 to 20% is usually pretty good. You're probably not going to be seeing most often higher than the 20%, depending on the format, your audience, but that should give you some benchmarks there to look at what your process is compared to theirs. So it looks like we've got some great results in the poll. I don't know, Charity, if we're still seeing some more people weigh in, or if we want to close that.
A couple more seconds.
Sure.
Still have some coming in. All right, I'm going to close it in 10 seconds. All right. All right, can you see the results?
I do. So it looks like the most people said more speaking engagements, and then second was getting more contact information. Fantastic. So now that you know that that's where you have the most opportunity to focus, you can back into the math and say, okay, how do we get more speaking engagements, or how do we get more contact information during our presentation or in advance so that we can continue that conversation? Wonderful. So I think I can close this and continue on here. So there's a small window of opportunity for you to influence all these elements within this equation, and it's not 5 minutes before the presentation. So here's one thing you can do right now. Consider the 5 W's and the H questions. You all heard this in school or probably in writing at some point. Today, we're going to focus in on why, when, and who. Why? What is your goal and the goal of the meeting planner if it's not you? How can you create that win-win? People often are attending a speaking engagement for one of three reasons: either to get new ideas, because of social connections, or to build community. So here's a couple approaches you can use. Start with you and your in your language. Make sure that meeting planner feels like they're the hero. Ask them, what's a win for you? When? The number one thing to do is to ask, how much time do I have? And who? Who is the audience? What do they struggle with that you can solve? How can you help them? So here's some language you can use. Your people have this problem. I have a proven solution that will help them. Obviously, substitute the problem for their specific pain points and the proven solution with what your solution is that you can help them with. So most important thing is to make sure, if you're not the meeting planner, that you are easy to work with. Here's a ninja tip for you. If you want to do more speaking, which I know a lot of you said you did, reach out to those influencers, those top clients, or maybe those past interns that you've had that have been really successful. Ask them, where do they hang out? What groups are they a part of? What conferences do they always attend? What podcasts do they listen to? Then for those that seem like they could be a fit for you, ask them if they know anyone who runs those that they could introduce you to. I know some of you may be worried that these recommendations won't work for you or may have already done this. Here's what I know is those that explore new ideas that find the right solutions to them. It may not be what is presented, but it's often the idea that leads to the idea that makes the difference. The small changes that can lead to big results. My husband always tells me it's baby steps, Jennifer, baby steps. I love working with my client, Matt, recently. He's a field director out in Colorado, and he manages a LinkedIn group for his alumni association. He's hosted a couple of random webinars in the past where he either presented a topic or he allowed a member in his group to speak. And attendance was really low, but he knew with hundreds of members, there was a bigger opportunity. So we worked together to obtain feedback from his members on what they wanted. And then we scheduled recurring webinars with a consistent format so they knew what to expect. We created promotional and recap posts to extend the webinar beyond just that 1 hour experience. This has already led to greater participation, engagement, and more authentic online relationships. He's getting several new clients out of this group and feeling so much more confident in his approach. And that's just the sort of thing I'd love to help you with as well. So everyone may be telling you you're a good speaker, but I'm saying if you're not collecting at least 60% or more and converting at least 5%, you're not maximizing your speaking opportunities. The one thing you need is to take action though. Remember, it is progress over perfection. So you might already feel like you have a long list or starting to feel a little overwhelmed with the improvements you've identified today. So here's what to do if or when that happens to you. Star 1, put the rest on your quarterly plan and create a system to work on the additional items bit by bit each quarter. And know that you don't have to do it alone. So that's all I have to say about that. Let's move on to our next topic, messaging. So my second topic is messaging. The reason we're talking about messaging is because if you confuse, you lose. So avoid the curse of knowledge and NM's notorious acronyms that we're always guilty of using. If you've never done any formal speaking engagements, these can help you the next time you're at a networking event, or even just ask the question, what do you do? If you're an expert speaker or a novice, this will help you. Everyone else is telling you that the measure of success is praise and positive reviews. I'm telling you it's the ability to connect and inspire others to take action. There's a window of opportunity for you to boost your bottom line. Don't wait until year end. So the structure that you want to use is to first open by connecting, then help, give away your best stuff that they can get a win immediately. Then your call to action, and finally your close and Q&A. You will notice that your offer and call to action is before the close, not after. The content portion should be what expands or contracts based on the amount of time that you have. If I had more time, I'd go over all of these, but today we're going to focus in on your opening and your closing. Implementing these tools alone are going to make a huge difference for you in your presentation. So the goal of the opening, like I said, is to connect. It's not to hear your entire career journey or all your credentials. Your job on the stage is not to be the sage on the stage, but to be the guide on the side. The goal is to have a human experience that drives the audience to that next step by using the power of questions, just like you do with your clients. It's the head and the heart. So how do you do this? First, you want to show that you're ordinary, that you understand them, that you're just like them. You've walked in their shoes. That way they will connect with you. But one thing to keep in mind here is you don't want to overdo it. Otherwise, they might start wondering, why am I listening to you? You have all the same problems I have. But show that you get them, you understand. But then how are you extraordinary? That you have credibility, that you've had experiences that they have not had, and your why. By sharing your why, they are more likely to follow you and love you, not just your content. So the best way we find to do this is through episodic storytelling. So it's not telling your whole life story, nor necessarily the most painful ones, but think about it like this emotional line. The 3-part story is a way that this can work really well and easy to implement. I used to struggle with X, then this pivot happened, and now instead, here I am. What are the things that you were good? Things were good, then they were bad, then they got good again. And this should be something you can do within 5 minutes or less. People don't want to hear you go on and on for hours before you even get to helping them, but they do want to connect with you first. You never want to say your product or your program during this time, but you want to be talking about in the language of your audience. What are they complaining about? What are they lying awake worried about? You know, no one wakes up hoping that they can get your system or your product or your internship. They wake up saying, I just need a job. I need more money. I don't know what to do with my life. So start with that problem, not with the solution, and use that language of the consumer. So if they're nodding their head with you, you know you got it right. So here's one example. I used to struggle with my weight. I craved snacks every afternoon and I hated the way I looked in clothes. Then I discovered the Optivia weight loss program. And now instead of struggling, I've lost 15 pounds in 4 months. Instead of craving, I'm full every afternoon. And instead of hating the way I look, I love it. See how easy it is to take what the situation at the beginning and then flip it on its head on how none of those are problems anymore. Here's a ninja tip for you. Put any controversial points that will stand out at the beginning of your presentation, because that will surprise people and get them paying more attention. Otherwise, they might think it's the same presentation they've heard hundreds of times in the past. So you might position this something along the lines of most people think X, actually Y, and you'll grab their attention. So we're going to launch another poll here. Charity's going to bring this up on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you feel like you are doing connecting through your opening story? The numbers are going everywhere. This is exciting. Lots of variety in our audience today. And Charity, it looks like we're good. Is that right?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and end it.
Okay.
And share the results.
Wonderful. Okay, so we had some of you that felt like this was an area maybe where you have a lot of opportunity, and some of you are feeling pretty good, and some even feeling really strong. So that's fantastic. We're kind of all over the board. For most of you, kind of in that middle ground, just like you said at the initial pre-work, that feeling like you're doing all right, but there's some more opportunity here. You know, I never find you're probably going to go from a 2 to 10 in anything, but can we get you from a 6 to an 8? That's the goal. How can we help you move up a little bit more and feel more and more confident the more and more you do it? Wonderful. So let's talk about closing now. So after your offer or that call to action, you're going to make a tactical close, but you don't want to ever stop there. You want to end with an emotional close, because half of the people are emotional decision makers and half of our audience are probably more tactical decision makers. So I'm going to give you 2 options today on how you can end an emotional close to create that emotion you want the audience to have, whether it's to take action, to hire an expert, to change the status quo, or to believe in yourself. Whatever that emotion is you want them to be left with at the end, here's a couple ways that you can get to it. The first option is to close that loop on your opening story. And for those of you that were an intern or you joined right out of college, or you really have a really strong, powerful story yourself, this might make the right sense for you. The other option is to tell a repeated stem. This is not a story, but this is the fastest way to close your presentation. And for those of you that maybe feel like you're bad at telling stories, or your audience is done hearing stories, like potentially with physicians or engineers, this is the way to go. So for a repeated stem, what you do is you start with 3 sentences with the same 3 to 5 word phrases at the beginning of it. You always end up remembering the stem, so it should be something that you strongly believe in. The most famous stem in history is the I have a dream speech, right? It wasn't even named the I have a dream speech initially, but they changed it to that after the fact, because that's what everybody remembers is I have a dream. I have a dream. We don't remember all the rest of it necessarily, but we remember that part. So here's an example. It could be your stem part could be like, you deserve a great retirement. You deserve a growing firm. You need a playmaker on your team, or now is the time. You repeat these 3 times, saying the same stem with the statement at the end of it. And on the last time, you just say the stem. Let me give you an example. You deserve a great retirement where you don't have to worry about where the money comes from. You deserve a great retirement where you get to relax on your own schedule. You deserve a great retirement where you can travel if you want to travel, serve if you want to serve, relax if you want to relax. You deserve a great retirement. You won't even have to tell your audience your talk is over. They will feel that it's over with the way it ends on a high note with that strong emotional close. So we have one more poll for you here that Charity's going to launch. We want to know, how often do you end with an emotional close? And some of you maybe use an emotional close, but you may not be ending with it. So I'm curious of if you have one and ending with an emotional close. Okay, it looks like we've got some responses in here. I think we might be ready to share those.
Yep, just ended it and shared it.
Okay. So it looks like most of you said sometimes, so it can be kind of inconsistent. So this might be something too that you want to say, you know, how can I do it more often? Or how can I make sure that that's the last place that I go with my presentation, that I'm not ending with the offer and next steps. So when everyone else is giving up on speaking engagements, now is the time where you can stand out in this space. You know, for some of you that aren't overwhelmed, you're going to run right back to the office and implement everything we've been talking about today. So avoid these mistakes. Not actually providing value and helping during your presentation, selling without embedding examples of your offer or what it looks like to work with you or your office within your presentation. And most importantly, ending your presentation with the offer. You know, we've all been guilty of it at one point or another, but just because we've done it in the past doesn't mean we have to do it any longer. So the most important thing to remember here is to connect and to teach less. That's all I have to say about messaging. Let's move on to our third and final portion of our session, delivery. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So it'd be great if you had some questions. So if you're already thinking about them, feel free to add those into the Q&A or jot those down so that when we're ready, we'll get right to making sure to address your questions. You know, the reason we're talking about delivery today is because effective delivery allows you to speak with confidence and is critical to driving action. Using engagement, understanding how your audience learns, your presence, and powerful conversion accelerators are the key to maximizing your delivery to get others to take action. So let me give you a few quick things you can implement today. In terms of engagement, If your presentation is 40 minutes or longer, you definitely want to have 1 to 2 activities built into it. It might be as simple as a reflection question, turning to your partner, or going into a breakout room. Using road mapping for your content reduces the interference and keeps engagement higher. So at the beginning of each and end of each section of your content, make sure you open it and give them an idea of where you're going, how much time it's going to be, and then you close out each section. So that's all I have to say about that. Now, let's transition to the second part of our conversation. Is an easy way, a simple language that you can use to help them follow along. Here's a ninja tip for you. Build audience participation from the start. Thank the person that introduced you. Thank the person that spoke before you. Thank the organizer. Get people involved and participating right from the start. For the learners in the room, you want to make sure that one tip here is to make sure that you're giving some short-term wins that you can act on immediately right now, as well as some long-term where they might need your help. If it's all short-term, they're just going to say, hey, I can do it myself. If it's all long-term, they're not going to feel like they're going to get any value out of your presentation. So make sure you have both. Now, let me give you some things that might take a few weeks for you to think about how to implement in your presentations. These conversion accelerators. To me, these are really gold. And as I go through them, drop any that you might use in the chat. We'd love to hear your examples because you guys do this every day. I'm sure you have some great ones. The first one is an I believe statement. I believe every presentation should have an I believe statement. A second one is credibility statement. An example would be, in the past 20 years, I've helped advisors just like you score more and better advisors and clients. A separation statement. Everyone else is telling you X, I'm telling you Y. So everyone else is telling you that marketing and sales can always wait, or marketing can always wait. Focus on sales. I'm telling you it's sales and marketing. Date Sam, marry Sam. An urgency statement. There's a small window of time. When everyone else is pulling back from their marketing investment, there's a small window of time for you to double down and see exponential results. Linear path to learning. So for a linear path to learning, this one takes a little bit more to follow along. What you're going to do is you're going to break your audience into 3 groups and tell them that whichever group they're a part of, this offer is for them. The audience will make excuses day in, day out, nonstop of why they shouldn't take action or why this isn't for them. So this could be a year in school, like whether you're a freshman or you're a senior. It could be how long they've struggled with the problem, what other solutions they've tried, whether they've tried one thing, some things, or they feel like they've tried everything. It could be, what do they want out of their career, whether they want freedom, flexibility, finances. You can divide your audience however you see fit, but you break them into 3 different groups. So an example would be whether you've spoken to only prospective clients, you've given a few class talks, or if you've spoken hundreds of times, season tickets will help you drive more people to think positively about your firm. And then picture past the sale. So here you're going to picture and start with the phrase picture of day. You're going to use that 3 times. The first time you're going to use something tactical, like something that they can check off their list. The second statement is going to be an auditory statement. What would they love to have someone come up to them and say to them? What would they be saying to them? And the last one is aspirational. So here's an example. Picture a day when you don't worry about what you're going to say when you get on stage and you have exactly the right words at exactly the right moment. Picture a day when some from the audience comes up to you after your presentation and says, I want to join your firm. Picture a day when you have a steady stream of new advisors coming to your firm every time you speak. Your audience will recall the auditory one 2 times more as often as any of the other statements. So that one's really powerful. And you've got to get your audience to picture what life is like to work with you or your firm if you want them to take the next step. It's a great way to end your tactical close. So drop in the chat any examples that you might have heard me use of some of these conversions accelerators through our presentation today. And while you're doing that, everyone else is telling you that measure of success is praise and positive reviews. And although many will, if you use these tactics, I'm telling you it's the ability to inspire others to take action. Schedule a meeting, attend the next presentation, visit the office, whatever that is for you. So let me give you the best place to start here. Create a separation statement. That's all I have to say about delivery. Before we move on, I just want to check in with the chat. Charity, anything coming in there that we should address, or you want to make sure we highlight some of the great comments?
Yes, there's a lot coming in. Mostly, I need my team to listen to this, so I need the recording. So a
Wonderful.
lot coming through, and then we have some general questions that we can either go through now or we can wait till the end, whatever you prefer.
Okay, well, that's great to hear this is resonating. You think more people should hear it. We'll take those questions in just a couple minutes. Let's make sure we talk about, oh, I think I jumped ahead here. This last little piece for you and everything. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are getting some value out of this and these examples that you feel like you can implement within your own speaking engagements. So I want to stop sharing my screen for a minute. Back over here. So one of the most common questions that we're talking about Q&A, one of the most common questions I get is, hey, Jennifer, can you teach my team how to get more recruits from speaking? Can you help us with this? And the answer is definitely yes. Every day I work with leaders just like you to help them improve their messaging and finally to get the results that they're looking for. So the next step for you is to grab your season tickets to the Be a Better Speaker season ticket package, What it is it's 4 quarterly team, 1.5-hour strategy sessions to work through getting more speaking opportunities, or as some of you mentioned, to maximize those you have as well. What it does is allows me to speak directly into your business. So it's specific to you and your voice is heard. And what this means is for you, you don't have to do this alone. You'll actually know how to apply all the things you've learned. Your questions will be answered, and the ongoing support you need is provided. So whether you've spoken only to those prospective clients, you've given a few class talks, or you've spoken hundreds of times, the Be a Better Speaker season tickets will help you and your team turn every speaking opportunity into a win. I know human nature is to wait until we're not busy or to feel like you're ready, but here's the deal. We're never not busy. It's never the right time. So to get the help and take the action, and because I know that the Build a Better Speaker season tickets will improve your presentations and your business, and I'm so confident in that, today we have a special offer for you. If you sign up by Monday, you're also going to receive a free bonus 1-hour, highly focused hot seat call that's valued at $500. So you don't have to wait to get started. If you have a presentation right around the corner, want to get on this right away, we can make sure that you're prepared for what's coming up immediately. So you can go to playmakercoach.com/season-tickets. We'll make sure that that's in the chat or gets sent out to you as well to grab your tickets today. And we'll be sure to include that link in all the follow-up communications as well. And don't worry, I'm going to teach you what's cost me over $20,000 to learn for only $997 per person, or $1997 for your entire leadership team. So picture a day when you know exactly what to say and how to deliver it to increase your speaking value. Picture a day when your audience says, I want to join your firm. Picture a day when you don't have to worry about recruiting, when every piece of your communication speaks in the voice of your audience. You're going to feel so good. So I'll leave you with this. I was sitting at my desk when I got an email from a client that something wasn't displaying right on their website. So I thought I'd test it out on my own website. I logged into WordPress to try to fix an image on my website and thought, this should be easy enough. I can do this. In preview, it looked great, but guess what? When I looked at my live site, I discovered instead of fixing the problem, I actually made it worse and created a new one. Go figure. Lovely technology. So then when I tried to undo it, I made it even worse and thought I had messed up my entire page. I was so frustrated and I didn't know what to do. I felt like I wanted to throw my computer and hit something. After fighting with it for what felt like an eternity, I finally said to myself, stop. I sent a quick text to Joe, and what do you know? He fixed it in 5 minutes. Why didn't I just do that in the first place? In all our lives, there are times when we are better off hiring an expert. There are things that we do don't do very well, but someone else does. Things that we don't do very often, but someone else does every day. Now is the time to get help. Now is the time to hire an expert. Now is the time to get your Be a Better season tickets, Better Speaker season tickets. It's time to speak powerfully so that you can reach a larger audience. It's time to speak powerfully to become seen as a thought leader. It's time to speak powerfully so that you can inspire change. It's time to speak powerfully. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Jennifer. In the last couple of minutes here, we've gotten many more comments about how great this is and how many people on their team need to hear this. So that's wonderful. We also got a comment from Joshua Miller. Jen is great. She's helped me with my personal value proposition. So lots of comments and kudos to you. Another comment that I saw come through was how relevant this is regardless of role and what it is that you might be selling. So like if you're an advisor, if you're a leader, if you're a recruiter, all of these concepts apply, because at the end of the day, we're doing a speaking engagement for a reason, and all of these concepts fit regardless of reason. So that's been very helpful for people. This was at the very beginning of your presentation. We got a question about getting contact information at a speaking engagement, and what is the best way to typically go about that? And I mean, there's probably different ways if it's virtual or in person, but what thoughts do you have about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And we didn't go into that today. So definitely something where there's a lot of things that we could talk about that around that. One thing you could do would be to talk about having some kind of pre-meeting assessment or resource that's available that people complete. For instance, you saw today, for some of you, you completed the pre-work assessment. Now I have contact information for everybody that's completed that. But it's designed in a way that it is something that's hopefully going to help you tailor your presentation. So it's meaningful to the meeting organizer for them to let you do that, because they can see how it can make your presentation even better, and meaningful for the participants too, to take the time, because you can make that presentation more tailored to them. So that's one way you can do it. There's other things with having something, if you're in person, definitely having something at people's desk that they can fill out, like a postcard at the end of the presentation right away. A few different ways that you can do that to get that contact information. That's definitely a great question and really important part of the process.
Great. We also had a question a while back, and I think it was one of your earlier slides, where it said that you need to make your ask before you close. And right now, I probably speak for many of the individuals that are doing speaking engagements, especially on campus. We always close and then kind of ask for students who are interested, follow up with us about the internship. So I'm curious if you could shed a little bit more light. Is that right before the close? And then what does that look like?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways to do this. I know it's one of the biggest revelations to me to be like, okay, you don't wait till the end to make the sale. And part of that is because psychologically, people process content different than they do like sales information. Their mind automatically can tell that like, okay, this is where they're educating, and like, here's the sales pitch, and they receive it differently. So by doing it earlier and closing with that emotional close, it's not going to feel as salesy to them nor to you. In addition to that, I mentioned embedding your offer into your presentation. So if you think back to my presentation, I talked about how I worked with Matt on his webinar series and the group that he leads. Doing things like that throughout your presentation will give them a sense of how you can help them. And they're already going to say like, oh yeah, I need that too, before you even get to talking about your specific program. So once again, it's not going to feel as much like it's a sales offer as something that they're already waiting for you to give them that information, because they've already seen examples of how that would help them earlier in the presentation.
Mm-hmm. This one isn't quite so much of a question, but I thought it was really helpful to repeat out loud for everyone. One of the individuals shared, it's really difficult to sometimes include emotion in your presentation in front of a lot of people, But because you shared those examples as you were going through your presentation, you did that and you even closed with the emotion. So one of our individuals is feeling much more confident to be able to do that. And then
Good. I'll just say one thing with that too is, myself, I am very much a tactical person. I have to work on this. It's really hard for me to talk about the emotional piece. I'm like, just do it. Like, I don't know. What was I feeling? So it doesn't come naturally to me. So if it doesn't come naturally to you, that's all right. Using some of the language in there, you can take somebody else's and use it and make it your own, or just say those words about like, what were you looking at? What did you hear? Thinking about those little pieces will all of a sudden start to make it really come to life. And if you're not a natural emotional storyteller, you'll find little ways to get better and better at that.
Absolutely. All right. Got a couple more comments just giving you praise. So we'll skip those to get to this next question. So this one, if you are not getting responses from emailing and calling to schedule speaking engagements, particularly on campus in this case, what is the best way to improve your approach to stand out and get a higher response rate?
Yeah, great question. So, certainly if you have an introduction, just like referrals, like everything else, right? If you have somebody who can help make that introduction for you, that goes a long ways. In addition to that, one of the things I'm seeing that's working really well right now is video introductions. So, doing a quick bomb, or there's various different tools you can use. That's like a 30 second, personal kind of introduction that tells them a little bit about who you are, how you can help their problem, their audience, and what you can speak on to help provide that solution to them.
That's a great idea, the video introduction. I do have a couple of clients that have also been using snail mail because people love it and they like to open a little something, and just doing like a cookie and a little postcard that says something like, hey, my name probably looks familiar. I've reached out several times, looking forward to connecting with you, something, similar to that. But the video introduction, there's something about a video link that people just have to click on it. They have to see what you look like and what you said. So I love the video idea. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to do that where you can make it personal, but yet, most of it's the same content over and over. So you don't have to repeat recording the whole thing, but you still get it personal to that right. individual and their organization.
And it's quick and efficient. So it's easy to do for multiple people. So let me check. I think we got a couple things open here. It looks like all of the questions at this point have been taken care of.
Well, one of the most common questions that I get to based off of giving this presentation is, what should I do if I know I want more help in this space, but I'm not sure whether my office wants to commit and everybody wants to be involved with it. So what I recommend, if that's your question, is go ahead and get started as an individual. And then if your team, the whole leadership team decides they want to participate in it, we'll make sure to credit you. We'll get all of that stuff squared away. So make sure to just go ahead and sign up as an individual to secure your spot. And then we'll take it from there. So I think Charity, I think maybe we'll have time for one more question. But if your question didn't get answered today, or you have some additional questions that come up, don't worry. What you should do is feel free to text me. You can send a message to, it's 816-718-5516. That's my personal line. I will make sure to follow up with you, answer additional questions, go into as much depth as you need to make sure that you've got what you need. Regarding today's conversation. So if there's one last question, I think we can take that, Charity.
All right. Okay, we have one last question. You had talked about providing value to your audience. What if you don't understand what your audience considers value?
Then if you are the meeting organizer, you need to think about more specifically who is your audience and what do you know about them? If somebody else is a meeting organizer, hopefully they should be able to provide you with more of that context. Mm-hmm. I know, like in this conversation, Charity and I had conversations in advance of what do you think your audience is? What are they struggling with? Where are they running into problems around speaking? What kind of speaking are they doing today? So just asking questions really gave me a better idea of how could I tailor this and what direction, because I could have done a few different speaking opportunities, but we decided like, this is the one that we thought would be the most impactful. So if you're working with somebody else, I'd say just make sure you spend some time really asking those questions. And like we said, don't wait until 5 minutes before the presentation. That's part of that who, what, when, where, why, all those questions that you want to be asking them so that you can try to get a best information. If they don't know, that's where that pre-assessment we talked about could be really helpful. Ask the audience, say, well, you know what, if you don't know either, let's send them an assessment so we can hear from them. Where are they struggling? Where are they at? And then you also got their contact information. So it's a win-win.
Perfect. That is great feedback. Well, Jennifer, we really, really appreciate you taking the time to give back to this audience today and sharing this feedback. I have lots to work on based on what I learned today.
We all do. Like we said, there's a lot in here that we all take a lifetime to master.
Absolutely. But it's such a critical skill for everybody that's on this call today, given what everybody does and in their roles. So thank you so much for the valuable information. We really do appreciate it. And as a reminder, everybody will get a follow through from this webinar that will include the recording, the materials, and the information about the season tickets. So if you do not see that information in your inbox by tomorrow morning, that means there's a problem. So check your junk mail or reach out to me specifically. You can reach us at info@empiregrowthpartners.com, or you can reach out to Jennifer directly and we will make sure we get whatever you are missing. So thank you all so much. Our next complimentary webinar is on October 21st. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody on that day. Have a wonderful rest of your day.